It's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, episode 2268, and I'm Dr. Neal Malik. Hey there, happy Friday, and welcome to another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, where I answer your health questions related to fitness, diet and nutrition, and lots more. You send in the questions, and I answer them for you. And if you do send one in, and you're in the U.S., we'll mail you a copy of our hardcover workbook. If you're outside of the U.S., we'll email you a PDF version. Now, the easiest way to send in a question is to email it to health@oldpodcast.com. And once a month, usually during the first Q&A episode of the month, like today, I mention a bit about my background and credentials so you can better understand where my perspectives come from. And given, again, this is the first Q&A episode of the month, it's time. So I've always been obsessed with Batman, but I wasn't always interested in the things I talk about on this podcast: nutrition, exercise, health, and wellness. But being diagnosed with a chronic disease at the age of 19 definitely changed my life's purpose. It was then I decided to focus my attention on helping others. I didn't want anyone else to experience the pain and anguish of a chronic disease diagnosis like I did. Now, in order to do that, I wanted to make sure I had credibility. This is not meant to be a humble brag, but instead help you understand my perspectives. I received both my master's and doctoral degrees in public health. And to really make sure I covered all of my bases, I also became a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm a certified health education specialist and a certified exercise physiologist through the American College of Sports Medicine. I've been teaching in higher education for over 15 years now, and I'm currently faculty within the California State University system. I've published peer-reviewed studies. I've presented at national conferences and have been interviewed by over 70 different media outlets for my expertise on basically all the things I talk about on this podcast. So I say all of these things because I want you to know that when I provide my commentary after each episode, and when I answer the questions you send in, like today, I hope you feel as though it's coming from a place of truth. My only intention is to help you feel your best. Oh, and why do I call myself Dr. Neal? Well, it's because most folks don't know how to pronounce my last name, especially when I'm introducing myself to my students, usually at the beginning of the semester. They'll say, Dr. Malik? So I say, you know what, let's just make it easier. Why don't you just call me Dr. Neal? All right, and with that, let's finally get to today's question as we optimize your life. Today's question came via email. Barbara writes, how can we balance between taking days off to rest and avoid injury while pushing ourselves past our comfort zones to achieve higher levels of fitness? In other words, how do we know when to rest and when to push ourselves beyond our preconceived limits? All right, first, thank you for taking the time to email your question in, Barbara. The general consensus is yes, rest or recovery days are important to help prevent injury and overtraining. It's believed that rest days will help us perform better during our next workout too. And I have tried to find a specific answer to this question, meaning, how often should we take rest days? And sadly, there is no consensus, meaning there is no straightforward answer to this question. You gotta love it when this happens. So, instead, what we have to do is rely on anecdotal evidence, meaning we have to rely on experience instead of actual published research. And this is not usually what I like to do, but sometimes we're forced into this corner. All right, so since we have to rely on anecdotal evidence and our own experiences, that basically concludes this episode. Thank you so much for listening. What's that? I should keep talking? Okay, I'll explain and try to come up with a more specific answer for you, Barbara. I'm the type that dreads rest days. I look forward to working out. I plan my days around my workouts. Even though I know rest days are important, I would skip them if I could. So, why are rest days important? Well, we know that exercise stresses the body. Don't get me wrong, it's a good type of stress. We're making the heart beat harder and faster. We're forcing our nerves and muscles to work, and the brain and spinal cord have to help coordinate all of this. This all leads to stress on the body. Again, good stress. But here's the catch. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. What can happen is too much exercise can lead to an overproduction of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Too many stress hormones can lead to us feeling, stressed. Just like when we experience too much psychological stress, like when we've got too much going on at work and at home, we may start to feel tired, irritable, unmotivated. We may lose sleep, our immune system may not work as well, our appetite may change, and we may even experience depression. These are all signs and symptoms of too much psychological stress and overtraining. So when we don't take rest days, we may experience many of these same symptoms. But beyond this, inadequate rest can lead to overuse injuries. So to help decide whether we need a rest day or two, we could think about how our bodies and minds are feeling. Are our muscles feeling extra sore, like more sore than usual? Have we had trouble sleeping? Are we feeling extra tired? All of these may be symptoms that we're due for a rest day. Now, here's how I know I'm ready for a rest day. I wake up after my usual amount of rest the night before, but I still find it hard to get out of bed. Not necessarily because I'm sore, but I'm just dragging. Sometimes I'll ignore this signal and think it's just my brain being lazy and try and get in a workout anyway. So here's my backup test. I'll start my warm-up before the workout, and I'll find that my warm-up is killing me. I'll feel out of breath when I normally wouldn't. My body feels like it just wants the warm-up to be over. To me, between waking up and dragging my body and feeling out of breath during my warm-up, these are all signals that today's not the day to try and push myself. Instead, I need to forget my planned workout and think about performing maybe some light stretching or doing those chores and running those errands I'd been postponing. So let's say we are due for a rest day. What does a rest day actually mean? One option is something that seems like an oxymoron, a rest day workout. So here, instead of performing the same workout at your usual intensity, you perform it at a much lower intensity. You could perform some stretching or relaxing yoga exercises too. Or don't complete a formal workout. Instead, stay active throughout the day by running errands, doing chores around the house, or just taking the dog for a walk. This is sometimes called active recovery. A rest day workout and active recovery can be really helpful when you're trying to heal sore muscles. This is because working sore muscles at a light intensity sends blood, which is rich in nutrients and oxygen, to those muscles. More blood flow means faster recovery. The other option is to use passive recovery. This is where you limit how much you move throughout the day. You definitely don't complete a workout, even one at a low intensity. You might even limit how many chores and errands you run. Instead, you focus on refueling your body with nutrient-dense foods and rehydration. I often recommend passive recovery when someone is experiencing pain, is sick, or injured. So, how many days off should we give ourselves? This is where it gets even muddier. From what I've seen, most healthcare professionals recommend giving the body 2 to 3 days of rest each week. These days do not necessarily have to be back-to-back. In fact, it's often recommended that we don't take more than 2 days off in a row. Again, the exceptions to this would be pain, illness, or injury. In those cases, take as much time off as needed. So the bottom line is this. There is no strict recommendation when it comes to when to take rest days. Instead, it really depends on the person, their workouts, and how their body is feeling. But consider taking 2 to 3 days off per week and space out those rest days as needed. Good news, business owners. Hiring game-changing employees just got way easier thanks to Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform helping over 3 million businesses do it all. Attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates. With Indeed's Instant Match feature, over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates the moment they sponsor a job. I especially love that if you invite these or any candidates of your choosing to apply, they are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/health. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/health. Just go to Indeed.com/health and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/health. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. ¿Estás disfrutando de mi podcast? Thanks to Babbel, I know what that means. Do you? You don't have to pay hundreds for a tutor or waste your time with language apps that are little more than games. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts to help you speak a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel is designed by real people for real conversations, filled with language learning tools that are approachable, accessible, rooted in real-life situations, and delivered with conversation-based teaching. And that's what puts Babbel ahead of the rest for me. It teaches you a lot of the lingo that you won't necessarily learn in school, but instead would learn only by speaking with locals. Here's a special, limited-time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/OHD. Get 55% off at babbel.com/OHD. Spelled BABBEL.com/OHD. Rules and restrictions may apply. Thank you again for taking the time to send in your question, Barbara. Now, if you want to send in a question to be answered right here on the show and get a copy of our workbook, you can email one to health@oldpodcast.com. Or if you want to hear your own voice on the podcast, come by oldpodcast.com/ask. Right on that page, you can record straight from your computer's microphone. It's really easy. You can even play back your message and do retakes before sending it in. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and call in your question. The number is 1-61-I-LOVE-OHD. That's 1-614-568-3643. Thank you so much for doing that. Answering your questions is my favorite part of the show. All right, that's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily. Thank you for listening every day and all the way through. I hope you have a great start to your weekend, and I'll see you back here tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.